Hello summoners, and welcome back to another episode of Pro Counters. This episode is going to cover the champions you'll need to be aware of to counter the meta on patch 10.3. We're going to be covering picks across every role, so make sure to stay tuned. Also, do me a favor and answer our question of the day. Which champion or champions need more counterplay? While I enjoy playing as Fizz, playing versus him is another story. He's so slippery and bursty, it feels really difficult to do anything when I'm playing against a good one. Even when I'm not laning versus one, I find myself getting ganked and one shot by one. Speaking of which, are you guys getting ganked in your own lane? Constantly demolished? Well, don't worry, we've got you guys covered. ProGuides is the #1 proven way to quickly level up your League of Legends skills. Whether you're looking for tier lists, champion guides, coaching, or courses from your favorite pro players, ProGuides is where you'll find it. Even players like Nightblue, Bunny Fufu, and Loco Doco support ProGuides, so what are you waiting for? Click the link to start improving right now. And with that being said, let's get started. Our very first pick in the top lane is going to be Vayne. While there's definitely a stigma around Vayne top, and most of us have probably had to Vayne spot one too many times, you have to admit she's a really good pick into a lot of juggernauts. Darius, Mordekaiser, and Garen struggle heavily against her because, well, they can't reach her. Vayne is able to use her range advantage to continuously kite them, and poor Mordekaiser is still praying that he lands his E on her one day. Vayne's Q is an amazing repositioning tool as it'll allow her to remain out of basic attack range and continuously poke her opponents out. While her E is a solid fallback, there's also the possibility that these types of opponents play passively. But what kind of Vayne player isn't down to free farm and scale up? Actually, don't answer that for me. Anyway, in theory, Vayne should be able to find farm leads and get past what's usually her weakest stage of the game, the laning phase. She also gets some extra solo XP in the side lane, so she'll hit levels 9 and 11 a bit easier, which are pretty big power spikes for her. Worst comes to worst though, Vayne is a great split pusher. She's one of the few marksmen that can handle this role decently, so definitely pick her into Juggernaut top laners. Next up is Kled. Yeah, he's pretty meta himself, but we wanted to throw him in here because he's practically the only guy that was able to put a dent in the boss's win rate last patch. Set was, for lack of a better word, pretty strong last patch, and Kled is able to stand up to him. During the laning phase, the biggest reason for this is how Set's W interacts with Kled's dismount. Set always wants to save his W for later into the fight, but there are going to be many times where Kled is about to dismount, so casting it would be overkill. It puts Set in a pretty tough spot, and oftentimes he'll have to risk it all if he wants to win. While in most matchups he gets easy turnarounds with the press of a button, Kled's Q applies grievous wounds, making him a suitable counterpick to the likes of Darius, Aatrox, and even Renekton. However, it's worth noting that basically every bruiser or juggernaut runs Conqueror, so there's some value on the grievous wounds against practically everyone in the top lane. Aside from his matchups, Kled is overall a great solo queue champion. His ults allow him to roam and start team fights effectively, allowing him to snowball his leads. And that's a wrap for the top lane. Let's make sure to check out those builds one more time as we head into the jungle. In the jungle, we'll start things off with Kindred. A marksman jungler is a pretty cool concept. I think the biggest reason Kindred is a great counterpick is because of her Q and its short cooldown. In the same way that Vayne can kite juggernauts up top, Kindred can kite a lot of early game junglers who need to stick onto their foes. We're looking at you, Jarvan, Olaf, and Kayn. In terms of the build, you can skip Black Cleaver if you're snowballing to go straight into an Infinity Edge. Stormrazor is an item some pros are building too, as it helps Kindred kite and also gives her a powerful mid-game power spike. Stick with the Black Cleaver if you want to play safe though. Aside from being able to kite champions, Kindred's ultimate is a hard counter later into the game. All of these guys are divers, and Kindred's ultimate can be a huge buzzkill for them. Another big takeaway in these matchups is that Kindred can always look for a wall to hop over if fights are going grim. Jarvan's ultimate is no exception. Do note, most players are opting for Skirmisher's Saber rather than Stalker's Blade on her. This will help you out in your duels, and Kindred already has a slow built into her kit as well. Next up is Vi. She's got a pretty weird niche she fills at the moment. Vi is some sort of tank-busting bruiser diver hybrid. If you're used to seeing her in various series, note the changes to her runes. A lot of pro players tend to run Hail of Blades nowadays. However, Aftershock is definitely still a powerful option if you need that extra survival or if your team already deals plenty of damage. Hail of Blades, however, works very well on Vi since she naturally builds a decent amount of AD. Hail of Blades takes advantage of this and allows her to instantly apply 3 stacks of her W, meaning that she also gets access to that attack speed bonus once activating it. Vi's bruisery nature makes her a great pick into champions who lack the sustained damage to win longer fights, as well as the burst damage to one-shot her. Picks like Jarvan, Lee Sin, and especially Zac come to mind. Vi's passive, Blast Shield, makes her a lot tankier than she appears as long as she's able to constantly trigger denting blows. Should be no problem with Hail of Blades though. Vi is also a solid pick into tanks. Like we said, she's a tank buster. Denting blows reduces her target's armor by 20% and also deals percentage of maximum health damage. Alright, let's get out of the jungle now and hop into the mid lane. Kicking off the mid lane is going to be Ahri. She's usually seen as a champion who has a lot of skill matchups, but statistics seem to favor her at the moment. Maybe the majority of Ahri players got good last patch, who knows? You'll definitely want to pick her into Syndra because Ahri can dodge most of Syndra's abilities and then burst her down. Against Diana, Yasuo, Zed, and LeBlanc, you'll have to play your trades out well and not waste your mana. There's a lot we'd have to delve into to cover each of these matchups in depth, but at the very least, we'll leave you with this. Try to farm up for a lost chapter before spamming abilities since Ahri's mana costs are pretty high. Okay, I'll admit that we've been a little bit biased towards Glacial Augment, but we've seen the light. More pros are leaning towards Electrocute right now, and it's likely due to the changes to the way the game plays out. Would you rather have the easiest picks in the world, or have the ability to one-shot a target? Right now, a lot of players are leaning toward the latter. It's going to be a bit harder and you give up those free, easy takedowns when players overstep their bounds, but more damage comes with more benefits than meets the eye. The biggest one is that it means more lane pressure. Having lane priority during the first 10 minutes of the game is a lot more important at the moment because of how easy it is for junglers to clear Dragon or Rift Herald. Both of these builds are still pretty popular. Although we said that pros are taking Electrocute, a lot of average Joes are still repping Glacial Augment. It's a great mid-game solo Q stomping build, so just try it out. Especially in lower elos, you'll get a lot more out of Glacial Augment. Next up is a much more straightforward counterpick in Cho'Gath. You silence your enemy and they can't do anything about it. This is why he's great into Yasuo, Zed, Syndra, Cassiopeia, and Ryze. These champions rely so heavily on their abilities that even 2 seconds without them feels like a lifetime. Yasuo can't dash or use his Q, Zed can't use his Shadow, Syndra, well, won't be able to disengage with her stun, and both Cassiopeia and Ryze can't mash their keyboard. We're hesitant to mention him as a counter to Katarina because Katarina gets a pretty safe lane against him. She can farm with Q and Shumpo away when necessary, but Cho'Gath is a great counter to her later in the game. His silence and Q are still going to shut down a lot of assassins, and Katarina is no exception. By the way, let me take a second and tell you about Glacial Augment and how amazing it is. Joking, but not actually, since it's actually really good on Cho'Gath. He's not very mobile, so all you can really do on him is try to engage or make picks, so you'll definitely want to stick with the Glacial Augment Keystone. Slow your foes, land your Q, and then eat them. It's as simple as that, I promise. Okay, now that's enough with the mid lane. We're gonna throw those builds on one more time before we head to the bot lane. Since she's not meta anymore, I'd like to officially welcome back Ashe as a counter pick. She's a solid pick into Lucian, Caitlyn, Kai'Sa, and Jhin. The biggest reason is that she can poke all of them with her W and or auto attacks to set them up for kills. Usually when I see one of these champions get hit by an Ashe arrow, they usually die. Just dodge it, they say. Definitely doable with Lucian, but less so with the others. Here's the trick though. Try to all-in champions who have an ability that can help them escape. Using lethal tempo and the slow Ashe's attack supply, you can pressure your opponents into using that ability to disengage or reposition. Once they've wasted it, that's when you get a free arrow. If you still miss, don't tell anyone you watched this video. Make sure you take approach velocity on Ashe. Magical footwear is pretty important too, but together they play a very important role in Ashe's success. The extra mobility will allow her to chase down foes much more effectively. Mobility is Ashe's one weakness though. But these two masteries, as well as Phantom Dancer, allow Ashe to more easily chase down her opponents. Times have been rough for our friend Draven, but at least he's hit counterpick status once again. He's been doing a little bit better than before, but still needs a little bit of love before he becomes meta again. For now though, he's a great pick into champions with weak all-ins and early games. Draven is the king of extended trades, so look to force them against Caitlyn, Kai'Sa, Aphelios, and Vayne. If you can't, try to at least get to the point where you can zone them off the wave and pick up farm leads. Draven relies pretty heavily on crashing in and snowballing, so try to pick him alongside more aggressive supports. Anytime his opponents overextend, Draven is able to pull the trigger and run them down the lane with his W. Don't be afraid, test your limits, and go for those all-ins to find kills during the laning phase. Draven's mid to late game is pretty underwhelming, so try to get around this by building leads in lane and helping your team secure dragons early on. Okay, that's enough about the bot laners, so check out those builds one last time before we head down to the supports. He should come as no surprise to you guys, but Taric is joining us once again. Still sporting extremely low play rates, we think it's worth mentioning him to you guys once again. Pick him into other melee supports like Thresh, Leona, Nautilus, and Blitzcrank. When they want to fight, let them have it. Taric wants to fight too, but getting in can be hard. Taric's sustain, shield, stun, and passive make him a great lane partner to both protect his ally and fight his enemies head on. Make sure you're also okay farming it out. Taric is more of a mid to late game pick anyway because of his ultimate. If you're not too much of a team fighter, well then I'm afraid you're gonna have to get better at them. This is where Taric thrives, and it's honestly pretty difficult to find leads in lane unless your enemies miss position. Pick Taric expecting to neutralize the lane in these matchups and be content with it. But if your enemies do try to fight, then make sure to punish them for it. Our last pick for the video is going to be Blitzcrank. While he's also pretty meta, he's arguably the best answer to the recent surge in popular range supports like Nami, Lulu, and Soraka. Once he reels them in, they should be as good as toast. Blitzcrank's single target crowd control and burst damage should be enough to burst down these kinds of champions since they're naturally pretty squishy. Of course, you're also playing Blitzcrank so you can make those game-winning hooks later down the line as well. Even during the mid to late game, Blitzcrank remains a great answer to these supports because they're quite immobile. Landing a hook on one of them should be a free team fight victory, and it could win you the game. As long as you don't miss too many hooks, you should also be able to take lane priority against squishier supports when playing Blitzcrank. The sheer terror of your hook should force enemies to back off, so once again try to pick up those dragons when possible. Otherwise, roam to mid or top lane to help your teammates out. That's it for supports. Make sure to take a look at those builds one last time as we conclude the video. That's a wrap for our pro counters on patch 10.3. Thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure to leave a comment or a like or just some feedback you have for us. Also, check out ProGuides.com if you want to get better at League of Legends. We're always out here trying to help you guys improve, and we're also trying to improve ourselves. Let us know how we can improve our content down below. That's it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Good luck in your next few games, and I'll see you on the Rift.